Okay, great. So I'm taking in for Amy for who has running room and couldn't make the trip and I think the airport was closed to the yeah, they have some snow. So, but I just wanted to introduce you to Erin Morgan and just to tell you more about herself. Place-based education is something that's very important. And so I really appreciate the work that you're doing here, and I really hear the similarities in these presentations that you're doing. And so doesn't it make sense as an experience that will actually not be just
my name is Erin Morgan again, and my thesis work, I work in a small public charter school in Oregon, and my thesis was working at that school through an action research lens to see how well we were fostering research with our students. And so what I'll be talking about today is really grounded in my specific school and the specific work that I did. I'm hoping that it can still be applicable to everyone. And so my objectives for the participants today, that you guys get to take away some excitement for the potential to bring research relationships into whatever program you're doing that brings the space resources there. Also, as I talk about my research process, that the people that are doing research might get some ideas. It was really important for me to collaborate with the teachers that I was working with, and so I'm going to share that process with you. And then at the end, we're going to have time to think about whatever projects you have next, either a course that you're planning for school, or if you are a teacher and educator, what you have next going on with students, and figure out how you can make that a little more meaningful for yourself by bringing in place-based resources. So as an educator, when we touched on this, that you need to know your students that you're working with, and so I'm going to lay out this high-tech tool up here. And I'd like to invite everyone to come up, and hopefully we can get on. Oh, it didn't work. We can get on this line without tripping over the board. So if you could come up and stand up in this front area, maybe we could push this first level of our chairs back. And let's not cross the wire today. Let's just get somebody else to come back. So this magic green screen represents a spectrum, and I'm going to ask a question that helps get to know you. And if you identify more with this end, then come over this way. If you identify more with this end, come over this screen. If the linear construct doesn't work for you for a question, feel free to make up your own alternate answer and try to trick people to come and with it. So that's welcome as well. So the first one is, I'm wondering how long you've been a part of the Prescott community. If you are brand new, it was your first time here, come over here. And if you are a veteran of Prescott and have a lot of knowledge, do you think we could share a couple of tricks with them? And yeah, feel free to push the chair directly up. Very good, very good. I like working with educators. So as you might notice too, that it's helpful to talk with each other to find where you belong. So the next question, I'm wondering what you do professionally. If your primary role is that of an educator professionally, come over to this end. And if you do something very different, your primary, you see yourself as your primary professional role. Professional, not life skill. Okay. I would like to know, because a lot of what I'll be presenting is about place-based education. If you are an expert or practitioner of place-based education, and if you have never heard of these are over here are the experts and practitioners, and over here are the
you can like do a
Okay, so that means that it's good for me to know that. This one is a little bit tricky one, so I'll talk about. If you feel that a role, one of the main roles of a school is to help the person who is if you think that that's not the role of citizen society, asking how do you feel? Is that a role that you think schools should play, or is it not a role? It's a tricky one. We could. You guys are welcome to debate. Make up your own. It very much. So feel free to make. Oh, it's not my definition. Whatever that means for you is fine, and we'll talk about it. Okay. Let's see if we can get this. The last one, I'd like to know why you're here today. If you feel like you are here today to inform your role as a student or researcher, why don't you stay over here? And if it's to inform your role as a professional or an educator, or somewhere in between, or none of the above, or if you don't know. And well, thank you for that. Is there any other questions anyone would like to tell before we have this up here so that we can answer them? Oh, not a question about my presentation. We'll get to that. Is anyone want to use this tool right now? Okay, then you can thank you for that. And if we could flip to the next slide. So in police education, whenever I get to a new place, when I take students out, I always ask them to figure out their context, where we are, trying to notice and make new observations about that place. And so since we can't, I would like to take this out and the Arizona today and do practice place presentation, but given our time limits, this can be our place that we can create today for the next 40 minutes. And our collective wisdom, it seems like there's a lot of them here, a lot of educators, so that we can share that as our mini place-based education. When I was reading about how to teach to teachers in a place-based education lens, I think it was Duval and Sobel suggested we have to body education. So I want to try and do that today. Feel free to interact and ask questions and participate. So my research really started with a belief that I think all students, all children are really capable of making really valuable contributions to their communities or to their natural spaces. And I think that schools can have a role in helping them get there, helping them figure out what that means for themselves. And so I started with this question. If we as schools, if the teachers in school would like to see that students are informed and passionate and empowered to pursue this word, what will they need to get there? And there's a lot of different theories about that and some really conflicting theories. But in my research, I found a lot of theorists that help me. And what I'm going to do is pass out one quote from a theorist from several that I found that were useful or interesting. And what I'm going to ask is that you take this quote and you read it and you decide how this theorist would answer this question. Once you had a chance to figure out your own quote, you can either stand up or turn to the people that are around you, make small groups, and find someone to talk to. So compare the two people, decide what they would say to each other, if they have anything in common. And you're welcome to stand out. You could switch quotes once you finish chatting about it, and we'll find someone new to talk about. So see how many you can get through, and maybe we'll have 5 minutes or so. Like to help me. You know, each person could just start with one, and then they'll end up switching. And seems like there's enough for everybody. Anything else? All right, as soon as you're ready, stand on up. Go ahead and chat with the people. Meet somebody new. All right, if everybody can make their way back to a seat. Would anyone like to share just a thought about what that experience was like? Getting to chat with different people. Anything interesting from that? Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. No, not a problem. So, I was looking at this question in order to organize it for myself. I was just trying to figure out, okay, if I want to figure out if we're preparing students to be informed, passionate, and empowered, what are they going to need? I thought the first, they'll need knowledge and skills. Some of the quotes might have addressed that. David Orton talks about how kids need to have technological literacy. They need to know what is happening in the world and in terms of citizenship. They need to understand how democratic systems work. They also need values. They need to care about it. And a lot of environmental education says if you give them this, they'll be in an experiential way. They're going to start caring about it. And then I also learned that it's very important for students to have a locus of control and self-efficacy, or a sense that they are able to, a sense of agency, that they're able to make change. So they know how to do it, they care about it, and they actually have the confidence that they're going to be able to make change. So I put a couple post-its and pins around, scattered around, and if whatever you just talked about, choose one or two ideas, write that on the post-it, and then come stick it up on one of these posters. You can belong there. If you have an idea and it doesn't belong on the poster, again, make up a different category. Yeah, that sounds perfect. You can do your own quote or just what you found interesting. So what is that one about? Yeah. You can just bring your quote up. I'm just kidding. Making up new ways. What it's all about. Which quote did you have? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. All right. Last two coming up. Thank you again for helping me look through all of those diverse theories together. And it looks like we came up with a lot of ideas and one somewhere in the middle. Since we don't have time to all come up and look at this, I'm going to leave it up and hopefully folks, if they're interested, can come and read some of the other folks and see how they fit in. But why I wanted you to do that is because all of those ideas that you just came up with, what I was trying to assess, which is a lot for me to try to do at a school, but it was really exciting. To tell you about the school, Forest Grove Community School is a school that serves 200 first or eighth grade students. It's located in the way west suburbia of Portland, Oregon, right next to a lot of rural land. and how a philosophy that they gravitated towards in that, and it's not the only one that they use, but in place-based education, which is, it sounds like we all know the idea of immersing kids in their place to learn about it, and then using that learning to give back to the community. We try to do that a lot at the school. There's two big programs at the school that are parts of the program that support that. One is our Out and About. Every class has a weekly expedition outing that they take into the community. Sometimes it's going to natural spaces to do field science. Sometimes we are meeting an expert at the county courthouse to talk about the political system. In this case, we had our middle school, which is our level 4 students, had literacy buddies at another nearby school that they worked with all through the year, and then they got to meet with them in the school garden. And that's supported and integrated with project-based learning, and so the TERS developed integrated units that happen in depth throughout the year that are tied to social science and science curriculum. And we use our Out and About to inform those. So in this case, we had level 1 for second grade students are going out to the forest to learn about wildlife habitat. They came back to the class and did research and writing about that. And then we applied it to our school by building different wildlife in the bug house, in our school garden, and they took the community members on tours and showed them our website to educate the community about how they could do that as well. We have more wildlife in our community. My role at the school is to manage that piece of the program. I'm the experiential education teacher, and so I work with all the levels to collaborate with teachers and figure out what they're doing in the class and how we can get it outside the class and how we can make it more meaningful for the kids. And I love that work because I see the impact that it has on students. And we had a lot of level 4 students who expressed that that was their favorite part of the school, was that chance to see that they're learning something outside and to get outside and see kids. And so my thesis was really not about trying to prove that place-based education was effective. I think our school has already decided, yes, we like this, and we see that it that kids are engaged, that kids are learning more deeply, and that they are excited about their learning, and that's what's important to us.
I'm just curious about that.
So that, yeah, I'm going to talk a lot more about that, and then maybe we could come back to the self questions at the end. Yeah. So even though overall students showed that they got this program, we still face a lot of challenges. So place-based literature, how many people have read some of Sobel? Oh yeah. So they talk really beautiful stories about how kids are moved and empowered and doing beautiful things in their community. And I think that's great. And I also realize that in a public school, there are so many challenges. We have the logistical challenges of living in Oregon. I should picture, because this is a level 1, this is a first grade student who drew one of our rain walks. And this is how he felt on our rain walk. And that is a lot of our place-based education in Oregon is dealing with the realities of nature, and also money and buses and funding, all of that. And then, of course, as a public charter, we have that additional responsibility, mandate to meet the standards and to have our kids perform in this test. And that's something that the teachers feel a lot of tension, and the administration feels a lot of tension, that our philosophy and our passion lies in one area, and we still need to prepare the students for something like that. So finding a way that actually at our school we can make this philosophy that sounds really beautiful work is what I wanted to do. So my biggest question that I started out with was this: how can our program, our place-based education program, most effectively foster student development as informed, passionate students? And to do that, I had 2 pieces. I wanted to evaluate our program. Are we providing students these things already? Do the students at our school have this? And then development. How can we grow? And that was action research in the sense that they were very dynamic between the 2 questions and how I use data to inform both those pieces. And I worked really collaboratively with teachers. So the big methods that I used were looking at the outputs of the program. So this is the student surveys, them telling me what they knew and what they thought. Parents telling me what their kids knew and thought. Work samples of the students. And then also looking at our program input. So I looked at how the Out and About, what we were doing, our projects, what the big projects are happening at school. And then finally the PLC, the professional learning community. And that was kind of central to this and my collaborative action research, because every time I went out and community, which was all the teachers at the school, and we talked about it once a month throughout the year last year, and it's continuing this year. And so they were really central in designing what my research should test and what we were going to do with it. So I'm going to go through each of those methods really briefly and give us a chance to talk about what they might have shown and how they were useful. The first one, when I was trying to figure out how to evaluate these kind of effective quality, a lot of research says, okay, give a pre-survey and then implement your program and then do a post-survey. And in a school level, that's impossible because we've had kids who've gone through the school since first grade, and it's not very practical either to try to figure out exactly what we're doing this year that's different. But I realized that if I surveyed our core students, I would be able to sort the data by the students that have been at the school all the way since they were first graders against the schools that the kids that just came in seventh grade. And I compared those. The survey was pretty extensive. This was just one question that asked them who you self-identify. So take a look at it, and if you want to find a little group again and just choose one piece of information that's interesting to you. So who could throw out what seems like it might be a strength of our program that we are succeeding in? Citizenship overall, though there was some, it wasn't a clear trend. These students that have been here longest. Yeah, I asked them, do you see yourself as a good friend? And I thought that was really interesting that the new students were a lot here. And so the kids actually called me out on it. I wouldn't pretend that my survey was perfect. I was just curious. Do you see yourself as somebody who's a good friend in the community? And I took some of these answers that were more confusing to me, that surprised me, that are the only 22% of the new kids thought that they, or the oldest students, thought that they were leaders and good friends. And I asked the students. So we brought this data back to the middle school class, and I said, so how would you guys explain this? What do you think this is all about? And we'll go to the next slide. So the students were able to rationalize their answers, and they really called me on that your definition wasn't good. They said that it's not that we're not leaders, we all work together and we all collaborate. We know how to work together, so we don't want to take a leadership role. That's not necessarily what I would like them to think of a leader. I think that if someone's collaborating really well, it's a leadership skill. But these quotes and this information that I got back from students added to my understanding a lot. So the good friends one, I asked them that, and they said, well, when you're first at the school, you have just a few good friends, and you see yourself as a great friend. But now we're all a community. We've known each other so long that that doesn't even mean anything to us anymore. Yeah, so it was definitely that there's a lot of bias in here from middle school brain and from whatever that can be identified as, and just that there was limitations in the words that I used. And this was another one that I just thought was really funny, that I asked students, are you comfortable interacting with people different from you? And one student was like, that question doesn't even give me room to tell you about what I think. And so this is what they wrote on top of the multiple choice. And you're welcome to read that. This is a 7th grader. So I think kids this age are great because they aren't afraid to tell me when I'm not doing the thing. Yeah, okay. And the parent questionnaire was a really exciting way to see, as educators, how many people are classrooms or work in a school. So we have these kids for 6 hours a day, and then we send them home. And it's really hard to know what they're actually internalizing. And this was my hope that the parents would be willing to share that, since a lot of what we're hoping to change is behavioral. And so this was one question on the parent questionnaire. This is an optional questionnaire, so it's biased in that regard. It was anonymous online. And these are the percentage changes. The percentage of respondents that said, yes, I've noticed this change in my students. So again, we can just take a minute to process that with small. I had 54 responsibilities. Probably not. Yeah. So there was limitations. I offered it in Spanish, but no one asked for that. I know that I'm guessing that the bias is towards parents that are more involved in their communication and not for them. Yeah. So is there anything someone would like to share? How many years of children? So I also didn't get that data of how this correlates with how long this. I was trying to take in a lot and ask, and this was also as action research. We now know all of the things we did wrong, and I'm going to continue evaluation next year at school. And so this was just kind of a snapshot of okay, what's going on, and this was really helpful for teachers to get to look at it and say, okay. Interesting that they don't see significant changes, and yet their students are more comfortable. So only 8% said, only 8% of parents said none of the above. I haven't noticed a change. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, but compared to the first one. So yeah, 56. So out of all the respondents, now this wasn't a number. This is a percentage. Right. So a percentage, 56% of them said they're more confident. But that's a change. Yes. Right. Mm-hmm. So this was different parents. Oh, I see. Does that make sense? So yeah. Were they able to just choose whatever? That it was check all that apply. So some of these were really exciting for us to see. Some of them were things that are areas for improvement that I'm excited about addressing. I really liked ones like this, that knowing that kids are coming home and being like, "Mom, recycle." So that's what I was talking about. Yeah. This would all be really, really good things to start and really hard. And so I was going to do a parent focus group, but again, I just ran out of time to again process this and say, okay, what do you mean by that? With the question of which isn't it was different than people. Yeah. Trying something. Yeah. There's a lot of ways that I can find it better, but it still provided this little piece of okay, we are impacted. There are impacts that is happening on students when they go home, but no, I'm definitely flawed in certain areas, and that it was fun to see that. And the parent questionnaire also offers the parents to give more qualitative data to tell stories about the students. This one was about a student that had gone to the wetlands as a project. The wetlands were about 2 miles from the school, and then he was able to tell us that now my student wants to bring every new family member that comes to visit to this place and take care of it. And that is really what we're trying to get at, that now that student feels like they are a student of that space and they are a citizen, that they want to share that with other people. And we would never print that otherwise. This is one of my favorite kinds of data. It was the level 1 students after an out and about. They come back and they do kind of an artistic reflection in their journal. This was an English language learner who said, we went on a winter walk and they noticed that all of the trees had lost their leaves so they could see nests. They said, it was winter, I saw some good nests, it was fun. And so this is a piece of data. Go ahead one more time. I coded all of these and to say, what does that demonstrate that they have? So go ahead and find someone and tell them, what do you think this demonstrates, or is not a good representation of? No, I haven't. I'm sure there's a lot. But each of these areas could have been a rabbit hole. And now I have a lot more. So does anyone have, what is something they think this might demonstrate about the student and what they know or care about? All of them? All the above. They would have to have the value of what that means.
You know, how it's in that person. I've also noticed I love it when they play themselves.
Yeah. I kind of made up ways that I was coding it, but I did define them. So one was a connection with place or a sense of place, and that I noticed that if they were making seasonal observations, that they were noticing the changes. If they had themselves in it somewhere smiling, that was probably a sign that they had some sort of emotional connection. And the other work sample that I looked at was level 4. The 8th grade graduating students do a capstone to finalize their work, and they are able to choose any topic they want, find a mentor in the community that will help them get there, and then do some sort of community give back. And I analyzed the presentation that they did for what was able to show me. One student created and raised money to give these baby bundles, which were packages of supplies to send with new foster parents. And it was really moving, her presentation. Another student made a plan to make a magazine about humor to share with the community, and he didn't get a thing done. He didn't accomplish anything. And this is his quote. It still showed this native recognition that I saw what happened, and I think I'm going to change that next time because that didn't work so well. Also, I went into classrooms and looked at the project. This was a 3rd, 4th grade project where they decided they really wanted to start a free bookstore, and they got excited about this idea, and they wrote persuasive letters to principals to encourage them to give us space in the school for their free library and free bookstore that they were going to give books away to kids for doing certain if they got awards for good behavior for meeting literacy goals. And so I went through these projects and said, okay, if this meeting the qualifications that our school has decided make a good project, and that was those qualifications were decided with teachers. I'm going to get to that in a second. I looked at out and about. What were we doing on out and about? What kind of opportunities we were providing kids? And this list was, again, brainstormed from teachers that they said, these are the things that we think will engage students. I wanted to see, were they engaged? Were they respectful? Were they prepared for the trip beforehand? And then what were they doing when they came back? So I asked teachers to fill out this kind of survey, and this is the data that I got back. These represent percentages, sorry. And I guess what was interesting to this, about this, is that when teachers told me that engagement was one of the areas they were most interested in, and I started correlating that with some of the other pieces to see when were students engaged in trips and when were they only sort of engaged. And I found that when there was time to build classroom community, practice teamwork, they were 100% of the time they were engaged. If they weren't practicing teamwork, then only 40% of the time they were engaged. And so there was these really distinct correlations that I noticed that were exciting. We also found areas that we could do better, like service learning. We really wanted to increase that, and that was also really tied closely with engagement. So when kids were going out and actually contributing to the community, they were really excited about it. And reflection was a big area that we're going to work on developing this year too. This was another that about reflections also provide anecdotal evidence. This was a trip to the school garden when we had free time at the end, which is one quality I was looking at. Is that something that's helpful in building stewardship and citizenship to have their own choice time? And when I gave them this time, this group of boys decided they went straight to the shed and got some tools to weed because they had found out that a preschool class was visiting the next day, and they were really worried they were going to poke themselves on thistles. And so they spent all of their free time getting off all the thistles in the garden. I feel like that's And finally, this is our professional learning community. I met again once a month throughout the year. I brought them ideas about how I was going to research and help them develop it with me. I brought the data once it started to come in and had them help me process it to bring more validity to it. And then also send them with the products to say, what are we going to do with it? Because then they would take ownership of it. Just so that we try to build ownership in students by giving them choice. I wanted that same teachers to come out with the sense of what they were doing. And it really helped to have it in there. yeah, it was a really rewarding part of the research. So overall, what that the school is providing students knowledge and skills. They have a lot of knowledge around environment, particularly. They have a high social literacy. They're not quite as high, and they have a lot of ownership of their community. They have a lot of skills. So I found a lot of data that showed they were good at collaboration, at communication, at action skills on how you go about solving problems. Their values, particularly around community, is really strong. So I got a lot of unexpected data back about our school community, not the wider community, but the kids were really excited to be a part of that school, and that they felt like their voice was heard there. And then also a lot of these kids were all really excited to get their feet on a lot of connection with natural spaces. And finally, that we were building locus of control or agency by having doing things like the capstone project, where students got to choose any project they wanted. And this was one girl's statement after she finished that project that was really challenging for her. And also, this is the first grader who drew his picture after he created his own wildlife habitat project, and he got to tour adults from the community. I thought that this drawing showed that he felt pretty empowered and excited about it. But my big finding was also that although we are building all of these areas, the amount that we're building skills and knowledge and values is up here, and the amount we're building agency is up here. So even though schools that don't incorporate place-based education might not be offering any of those, that is still a problem. When I was doing research, Ackman and Monroe and some others say that this is the most important part. Kids could have all the skills and the knowledge, and they could care about solving the problem, but unless they feel like they are part of that solution, it's not really going to amount to anything. And so David Sobel would say that that's a problem because if kids get too much information and too much knowledge about the issues that are happening in our society, and they don't feel like they can solve them, then they might just get overwhelmed and step back. And I saw some signs of that in our data too. When I asked the level 4 students at middle school again, what is one issue that you really care about? Can you name one issue you care about? The students who were older at the school were most likely to say, oh yeah, I know an issue I care about. But then I asked them, okay, what are you going to do about it? And the students who were oldest in the school were the most likely to say, I don't know. They said either, I'm not sure if, I think this problem is too big, I'm not sure I can solve it. Or I don't really think adults will listen to me about that problem. And that probably shows a lot of, that's probably kind of real. That the problems that they cared about, like oil depletion, human inequity, that was really big. But if we're going to solve that, and I'll go to the next slide, we need to, at the school, we really, really need to focus back in on building that agency for kids. And so what I'm working on this year through the PLCs is continuing to meet with teachers and finding ways that we can create meaningful and developmentally appropriate social action projects in the school, and that we can bring more student voice into it. Is my own area of passion that I'm hoping to pursue this next year. And how can we still meet all of that standards and those needs and bring more student voice into projects? So I'll go to the next slide. I'm gonna pass out what I was hoping to do at the end here. I want to make sure we have time for this. And then I'll take some questions as folks start working on it. I'll go to the next one too. We'll come back to this. So even though I was just looking at a school, I'm hoping that this can be applicable to whatever projects you're working at. We'll look at the next one even. I'm going to pass out this is a rubric that teachers developed. They decided the 7 categories that make a great project, and I asked them to define it based on how a student would define that project. So how would a student describe what that would mean? So for example, a first grader would say, if it's relevant to me, then I learned something fun and interesting. There's a space that I left for your own definition. And if you have time, take this and choose a project and decide what is your area of strength and what is one area that you want to develop. And then on the back side is a space for you to brainstorm community resources. So think about what are local organizations that might have empty space for me to use or expertise, or how could I apply what I'm learning to them? So do they have students with unmet needs, or seniors with unmet needs, or graffiti in the playground. There are some needs that you might be able to solve with the project. I found as a learner here at Prescott that I'm way more excited when I'm doing something for a real reason. And so we can either use this with students or we can help guide your own work. So I'm going to have everybody pass that out. The question goes up. It was started about 8 years ago by a group of parents. And they were all parents of the school who started with the founding of it. They got together, made the nonprofit, and worked with the district. The district was not always cooperative, but they tolerated us. And they just found our building. The school is pretty small. It used to be a morgue, so that has some interesting history. But it wasn't ready. One interesting history is it wasn't ready for the first month. They hadn't finished the coding, and so the school happened to decline for the first month. I kind of wish we could only do it. Is there any other ways? I guess I'll ask you as you're starting to look at this. How could you use some of this information to work? So this tool was developed for teachers to help them kind of design and evaluate their projects. And I wanted them to use student-friendly language so that they could talk about it with their kids also. So it's really a flexible. I'm going to track it for myself of how are we doing our projects? Are we developing in a lot of areas, or which areas are really exemplary? And we kind of want to build those 7 areas. If nobody has questions, then I encourage you to take the next 5 minutes to try to think of a project and talk to the people around you. Like I said, you guys have a lot of resources to say, okay, this is a project I'm working with. I'm trying to learn about this. What resources can I contact? I'll come around and talk to people.
Well, it's hard to communicate between the Oh, yeah. Oh, wait, yeah.
That's kind of like the big question I'm trying to figure out and having teachers feel much more and it's like kind of
I remind me what you're talking about.
Get off the end. I know you'll have to switch in a few minutes. Here's a few of the resources that I found helpful, but I have a whole list of references up in front if anyone wants one. I also have some other copies of the student survey and things like that if you want to see. And thank you for everybody. Let me know if you have questions.
What is it?